Good evening, campers. It's me, Kieran. Today we are going to talk about, well, not a Man Booker winner, but instead the winner of the Lost Man Booker. That is J.G. Farrell's Troubles. What is the Lost Booker, I hear you ask? Well, TLDR, there were some changes in some rules, which meant that books from 1970 were never eligible for the prize at all. Oh, let's just do the NLDR. That's not long. Did read. Up until 1970, books were only eligible for the year prior. In 1971, books were only eligible for the year that they came out, the same year as the Booker. So in 1971, only books that were published in 1971 were eligible, meaning that anything in 1970 was just forgotten about. Until 40 years later, in 2010, the Man Booker Prizes put up a poll for the public to vote on their favourite book of 1970, and that would get the prize. Spoiler alert, it's this one. The Booker Prize put a long list, it was very long, it was over 30 books in total, that were published in 1970 that thought would be deserving of the prize, but rather than having judges choose a shortlist and then the ultimate winner, what we're used to with Man Booker Prize winners, they left it to you. They left it to the public to choose. Therefore, this is the only book that has won the Man Booker that had complete say from a public vote. The Vox Populi decided that Troubles by J.G. Farrell was worthy of the award. This is frustratingly good, this book. My homeboy Salman Rushdie loves Farrell, and Kazuo Ishiguro has praised this work as well. It has very good praise. It's really good. Farrell believed that Troubles was his best work. Sadly, Farrell was no longer with us. Farrell died in 1979 in a boating accident, so was never able to pick up the prize for Troubles. This book is the first in a trilogy, but the trilogy, it seems, doesn't need to be read sequential. But know that this book and the second book, The Siege of Krishnapur, have both won the Man Bookers. Move over, Hilary Mantel. Someone did it before you. Bringing Hilary Mantel into this doesn't feel that out of place. Both series deal with a particular moment in British history. Wolf Hall, I'll leave my review down below, dealing with Tudor times. Farrell is dealing with the British Empire, more the collapse of the British Empire and the waning of its influence in different countries. Troubles deals with the Troubles. We're going to have to talk about the Troubles here, people. I don't want to do this. I'm fully aware that the majority of my audience are not British, and that some of you might not know what the Troubles are, or that you have an idea of what the Troubles are, but don't know what the Troubles are. Now, for most people, the Troubles are just a thing. And what I mean by it's just a thing is that the Troubles isn't a recent event. Yes, you could talk about the IRA and what happened in Britain in 1980, but the Troubles has been going on for centuries. When people think about British colonialism, and think about it now, a few nations, a few countries are going to come to mind straight away. Not many people know that Ireland was colonised by the British. Yes, they were Irish slaves. I'm fully aware this is a very in the nutshell approach. Troubles deals with a very prominent year, 1919. I don't think it does, but I'm going to double check. Troubles deals with a very important year in Irish history, 1919. And that is when the IRA launched a guerrilla campaign against the British, and throughout Troubles we are going to be almost bathed in violence as we see acts done upon the British and on the Irish citizens. And why 1919 is important and where this novel ends is in 1921. The Government of Ireland Act is passed, which split the country into two. Northern Ireland, which maintained a part of the United Kingdom, and the Republic of Ireland. To reiterate this, the splitted island is just over 100 years old. Now, before we talk about the plot and the characters, just ignore this for some time being. I want to talk about my time reading this. Not how did I find it or did it go quickly, but literally the time that I read this in, the political landscape that I read this in. Halfway through reading Troubles, a historic moment happened in Northern Ireland, and that is Sinn Fein, the Republican Party and Nationalist Party, topped the votes in the government election. That is the first time in Northern Irish history that has ever happened. The DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party, normally comes out on top. In 2022, something has happened within Ireland. Now, does this mean that Irish reunification is going to happen? We don't really know, but with everything that's happened in Brexit, the fact that Britain has brought Northern Ireland into a situation that it doesn't want to be in. Oh, we're going to talk about the Troubles. Oh, okay, there was speculation with people that there might be a resurgence in the Troubles due to a barrier, a hard barrier that might have to be installed between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland due to customs. Know that the Republic of Ireland is part of the European Union and Northern Ireland now is not. Where everyone used to be part of the European Union and there was free movement of good trades and people, everything was fine. During the Good Friday Agreement that occurred in the 1980s, it was agreed between the British Parliament and the Republic of Ireland that there would never ever be a hard border put between Northern and the Republic of Ireland. Do you see what might... With each day since the Brexit referendum, Brits have slowly come to realise that we didn't really think everything through, did we? Okay, so we've talked about a hard border, we've talked about reunification, we've talked about the split, so now let's jump back to 1919 when Ireland was unified, when Ireland was Ireland. Let's finally introduce the main character, Major Archer, who is ex-military and is betrothed to wed a lovely Irish lady, Angela, who he met once. And he doesn't really know much detail. He's not entirely sure he's engaged to her. He doesn't know if there's a wedding. He thinks. And she also thinks there. First of all, let me just say, this book is balmy. Something's happening here, and it's just a given. So, Archer has been obtaining weekly letters from Angela detailing the mundane life that she has within the Majestic Hotel. The Majestic Hotel, what comes to mind? Well, it's clearly a link to the Majesty, her queen. So, therefore, let's think opulence. Let's think grandeur. That is as far from the case as possible. The hotel is literally falling apart. Like, at the end of this book, it is literally falling apart, like literally falling away at the seams. The entire architecture of this hotel is absolutely absurd. Even when Major Archer has spent years in the hotel, he seems to continually get lost and not know where he's going, while feral cats and dogs and pigs are walking through like the weeds, the vines that has just completely taken over. I know, what a wonderful place to have a wedding when no one's really sure if the wedding's going to happen and no one really talks about the wedding. But let's meet Archer's future in-laws. As soon as Archer arrives, there's a covert mission put on by the father, Edward, to find the Shinners on his land. Who are the Shinners, you might ask? Sinn Fein. Oh, we're going to have to talk about the Troubles again. So there's a difference between Unionists and the Republicans, of which J.G. Farrell actually explains that exceptionally well, as we're tracing through what could literally be a level in Uncharted, the video game, trying to identify the Shinners. But don't worry, there's not many political factions or groups you have to contend with. I'm going to have to talk about the Blacks and Tans, aren't I? Oh, the Troubles. The Black and Tans, whose emblem has the same harp as the Guinness logo? Like, is that intentional? I'm not entirely sure. Let me know if you know. Well, they were all across Ireland, and they were sent to where fighting with the IRA was the heaviest. Now, the Black and Tans are actually going to move into the hotel in the second part of this. There is a need to keep the Shinners out. Every possible way to keep Ireland from maintaining its independence seems to be fought from clearly a representation of the British Army, which is that it's not working anymore. This foundation that we thought was working does not work anymore, and people need their independence. People deserve severance from something that does not benefit them. But that is such an easy thing to say. To do is a whole different story. If we look at some of the guests that were still there in the Majesty, who know that it's unlivable, they know that it's literally falling apart. I can't stress this enough. It is literally falling apart. There's a group of old ladies who just keep their heads down and play cards. They don't care about what's going on around them. They're happy where they are, and they want to stay. They don't want things to change, because change is hard. Change is uncomfortable. If we look at where we are now, surely there's worse places to be. But what does change even look like? For our guide, Archer, he has absolutely no clue. He is as confused as you, trying to understand what's even going on. And does it even seem like Ireland needs change? Does it need to be its own independent nation? Because all he's seeing is dead bodies and bullets. But whilst the Major is observing everything going on around him, he also has his eye on someone, and that's Sarah, who's Catholic, and Angela is Protestant. I'm gonna have to talk about the Troubles again. Okay, not only is Ireland split by landmass and who wanted to be part of Britain and who didn't, it's also split by religion. Republic of Ireland are predominantly Catholic, and the Northern Irish are predominantly Protestant, which makes sense because if you refer back to Hilary Mantel, who was talking about the Tudor period, well, Henry VIII set up the Church of England, where the King or the Queen of England is the head of the church. The Republic of Ireland, who doesn't want anything to do with Britain, are probably not going to side with those where the Queen is in charge. Troubles in a nutshell. Sarah is completely shrouded in mystery and intrigued for the Mayor, but also for us, the reader. Without talking about major plot points, the first time we meet Sarah, she's in a wheelchair. And Farrell never mentions it again. And I don't think it's an ableist take. I don't think it's talking about disability. Weird things like this happen in the Troubles, and you just have to accept that we're going to talk about one thing, never mention it again, and let's find some Shinners. What is spectacular and what has to be addressed when talking about Farrell's work is how no one really can escape the violence. No one really leaves with their hands unclean. They might not actually be doing the violence, but there's blood on their hand nevertheless. As I've made reference to before, there are articles, there are reports throughout Troubles that dictate what is going on within Ireland during that time. But Farrell cleverly talks about other nations, other countries who have violence at the hands of the British government over the British rule, and the parallels and the comparisons that can be made with what is going on between the years of 1919 1921 in regards to Irish history is evidently a consequence of British colonial rule. If you've ever picked this up and looked at the synopsis, it doesn't really give you a flavour of what's going on within this novel. And I think if you absolutely adore Anna Burns's Milkman, which is a book I actually need to get around to and reviewing, Troubles would be an absolutely wonderful companion piece to that. I could see why Farrell adored this book. I could see why the public chose this. This is a wonderful book. It's a clear...
Hi, it's close-up editing, Kieran here. Apparently, it just gave up. I didn't get a score, but it's a 9. I'm supposed to do all my scores like this, just this close, just close enough so you just get, the essence of the score, close enough so we could be together. So you're